Hello, and welcome to the Security Nurse Podcast. My guest today is Dr. Laurent, a personal branding and career strategist for new nurses, consultant, keynote speaker, and entrepreneur. She is passionate about healthy work environments, increasing diversity in nursing, and advocates for nurses to boldly embrace exciting nursing careers and business opportunities. Appointed to serve on the NAWBO National Board of Directors Next Generation of Women's Business Owners Committee for the 24-25 board term and LinkedIn Top Nursing Voice. She is also the host of Nursing Dose with Farah podcast and author of The Nurses Making Money Moves, a Nurse's Guide to Starting a Business. On March 8th, 2025, she is hosting the inaugural Nurses Making Money Moves conference taking place in Tampa, Florida. You can find her on LinkedIn, and I'll put her website in the show notes. Due to the nature of healthcare, I feel it would be irresponsible of me not to have a disclaimer. This show is a reflection of my passion for healthcare security, nursing, and my desire to educate and inform healthcare professionals in all sectors. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of myself and of any guests featured on the show. They do not have any affiliation or represent in any way the view of my employer, University of Michigan Health Sparrow. The discussions and content shared here are intended for informational and educational purposes only and do not constitute professional medical advice or endorsements. If any medical conditions are discussed during the course of this podcast, I always advise to seek out the guidance of a physician before starting any new treatments or routines. And while I strive to provide accurate and up-to-date information, please remember that healthcare practices and policies vary widely, and it's always advisable to consult with a qualified healthcare professional for specific questions and concerns. Do your own research, and as I love to say, think outside the box. Your understanding and engagement with the content presented are greatly appreciated, but please be aware that any actions you take based on the information discussed in this podcast are strictly at your own discretion. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Security Nurse Podcast. Hey everyone, I am here with the lovely Dr. Farah Laurent, and we are here today to discuss nursing practice, nursing kind of personal branding, networking, and we're going to get into a little bit of like workplace violence and that kind of stuff too. But first off, Farah, I wanted to open it to you and just kind of ask you like, what got you into nursing? What made you want to pursue this career? And what was kind of that moment, aha moment that kind of pushed you towards kind of what you're doing now?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Thank you so much for having me, Sarah. I really appreciate it. This is amazing. So really, I have a long story, but I'm going to try to give you the short version. So really, growing up, I always knew I wanted to go into healthcare, but I wasn't really quite sure what area. And then later on, I decided that I wanted to go into nursing because nursing really spends more time with the patients and things like that. So as a little girl, I was always like messing with my dolls, putting Band-Aids on them and using them all up. So I knew I wanted to do that, even though my family was like, particularly my dad was like, "Are you sure you don't want to be a doctor?" I'm like, "Nah, I'm going to be a nurse." So that's what I wanted to do. So I went to school in Canada. And, nursing school, it was tough, like most nursing school. I did a 4-year traditional BSN program, but the faculty was not that diverse. We didn't have any male professors, not really diverse perspectives, and not really supportive of all the students. So in my last semester, one of my clinical instructors asked me what type of nurse I wanted to be. And I was like, I want to be an emergency nurse. And I was so excited. And she was like, "Farah, you'll never be an emergency nurse," and literally laughed in my face and was like, "You should go to med surg. You're too unorganized." And I was like, wait a minute. Like, who is she to tell me what I can and can't do? So that's kind of like what fueled my fire even more. when people tell me I can't do something, I'm like, all right, watch me. So in my last semester, me and another girl got lucky enough to get into the ER. So I made some great connections there, really worked hard, networked. And they're like, you should really apply here. And I thought they were joking. But I went ahead and applied for it. And not only did I get two ER offers from the small city I was in, um, I got hired before I even took my nursing boards in Canada. And that was like 20 years ago, which was not really heard, like, we didn't really hear about that. And there's no residency program. So the fact that I did that, I was very proud to start in the ER, and it was the best decision ever. So fast forward, I moved to New York City because I was like, let me go to a big city. I love to travel. So I pursued travel nursing 'cause I love to travel, went to New York, and then had various roles in education and leadership. But of course, along the way, I had a lot of adversities. Even though had all these advanced degrees and these board certifications, I was not advancing as fast as I should have. And I believe it was because of the lack of networking and personal branding, which we'll get into that later. And then I went up to the level of director of education, even associate dean of a university, and then quickly realized that some of these positions are very difficult to maintain because if you are someone who likes to advocate and speak up and things like that, sometimes it's not as welcomed. So, we'll get into that later, but basically within that time, I decided I wanted to start my own side hustle, my side business as a nurse career coach and a speaker. And that's what I did because I wanted to help the novice nurses basically go into specialty areas that they were told they can't go into, which they're still being told today. So I helped these new nurses get into the ICU, L&D, NICU, because they're really excited and that's where they belong. So I'm all about supporting new grads and nursing students. So that's kind of what led me to here. Yeah.
That's awesome because I have a little bit of a similar experience. That's I think I was told the same thing in nursing school. You need to go to med surg, you need to be there for a couple of years. And I thought I wanted to do the ER. But then I kind of decided against it and I went right into step down cardiac. So that's what I ended up going straight into. And I interned during nursing school in the ER, which then kind of helped me network and get to know people. But then I applied straight for the cardiology,
Yeah.
Step down. So I think it's really great. And like, we really do need to get that message out there that you don't necessarily have to do, med surge. You can, if there's a specialty that you're really passionate about, you
Yep.
can go after that and can do that. So
Yeah.
tell me a little bit. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, and I was going to say, you don't even have to start in the hospital. Like, a lot of nurses feel guilty if they feel like they don't want to go into the hospital. So I really have to work with them to be like, hey, it's okay if you want to be an outpatient nurse, if you want to work in the community or do public health or whatever, or start your own business. Like, that's why I wrote this book, Nurses Making Money Moves, A Nurse's Guide to Starting a Business. Like, the opportunities in nursing are endless. And that's like another thing that I love to amplify. And also, on my podcast called The Nursing Dose with Farah, I also like to shine the light on other nurses who are nurse entrepreneurs and doing different things in nursing. So that's kind of what I wanted to highlight because I think also the public doesn't understand what nurses do. And we also have to kind of guide the next generation to be like, listen,
Guide to,
that,
yeah. Well, I don't, and sometimes I don't even think nurses understand what other nurses do. There's so many. I mean, so I did the hospital, I did cardiology outpatient, I did
yeah,
pediatric home care, and now I'm in the ER. And, the experiences are
hmm
so vast and so different.
yeah,
And so having kind of that full range of understanding, I've run across a lot of nurses that are like, that they don't understand how like, the outpatient clinic works and that kind of stuff. And
yeah,
maybe a little fearful of it, but there's a lot of opportunity in those places
hmm
and also different scheduling. I mean, there's a lot of
yeah,
flexibility in scheduling too. So if your family life or circumstances change, you have that opportunity. So, well, talk to me. I'm a little bit interested, kind of like in New York, you said, or I think it was in New York where you said you were the director of education and then also an associate dean. I'm just really curious, like kind of about those experiences and And what kind of education like you like to focus on when you were in those positions?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I took a role as the Assistant Director of Education for NYC Health and Hospitals, which was one of the largest health systems in New York City. From a corporate standpoint, I did a lot of their education programming, and I actually ran their system-wide orientation along with the Senior Director of Education. And then I eventually, when I started doing it, I was just doing it myself. They have about 11 acute care hospitals, so it's a large system and like so
Yeah.
many clinics. So sometimes I'd have up to 100 or 120 new nurses starting, and I would facilitate that orientation for them. And I also like tweak the orientation and make sure that they focus on safety, quality, patient experience, all that type of stuff. And meeting the organizational goals. So that was one of the most fun things I used to do because I loved meeting nurses. Um, and That's where I kind of learned my passion for speaking and educating. My education background, I got my master's in education, really led me to the speaking world and improved my communication. Like, because in education, you have to keep the audience engaged, right? Like, or they're going to check out, especially
Yeah,
nurses.
absolutely. Yep.
And like all day, like I had them all day. So I was like, I need to be like a comedian, a performer, like make them, you know, get
You
up
have
and walk.
120 of them too, so
Yes. Like do activities. I had to manage different personalities. Like this one lady one time was like, I don't even know why I'm here. Like I'm in the OR and I'm like, lady, I had to go talk to her. Like it was interesting. It's like the ER, right? You just kind of manage everything.
yeah.
So I love that. And then I was also a clinical instructor for NYU at the same time, which was one of my favorite jobs. And then I also ran their preceptor program. And that was interesting because most places don't have structured preceptor programs. They literally say, hey, you want to be a preceptor? Like, go ahead.
Yep.
So that's kind of what I did. And I felt like it really improved my skills. It really taught me about like foundational leadership skills. I was, working with the chief nurse exec of the whole health system. And then it was during COVID, we had to work remotely. There was a lot going on. So that really taught me a lot. And then after that role, I went into the director of education role in New Jersey and really had to manage that whole hospital, deal with all the educators and make sure that,
During
like,
COVID.
kind of
Kind of. Okay.
kind of like it was off and on some of the waves, kind of near the tail end.
Gotcha.
So that was interesting. Uh, yeah. And then, fast forward, I was there for like 11 months. But again, I think because of my advocacy and then they had restructuring going on because their main corporate office was somewhere else, they decided to cut a bunch of roles. And of course, education got cut. So
Ooh.
that was my first layoff. And
Yeah.
that was a huge slap in the face. However, I was so happy that I had my side hustle at the time to kind of, focus on and fall back on. But it really puts a lot, like it really put things in perspective for me with the personal branding part and starting your side hustle because literally they're businesses. These hospitals, it's so different than Canada, right? When I came from Canada, it was a big culture shock. Um, it's they don't really care about you, and they'll drop you in a minute. Like there are some great organizations, don't get me wrong, but when they have to make a decision and it's a business decision, they will let you go literally in a minute. So that's why I'm another aspect of what I focus on is helping nurses start their own side hustle and why I decided to do this conference called the Nurses Making Money Moves Conference, and it's going to be held in March. And I literally just decided that in December. So I'm very passionate about that because I want nurses to normalize talking about money and make more money.
Yeah. I think, well, so much to like unpack.
Yeah,
I got
I
like
know.
all these questions now in my head going on. So, um, I think you're right, like kind of on the organizations, I've worked in 3 different states, well, 4 now, including
Yeah,
Michigan, been a part of a lot of like hospital restructuring. Even when I was in the outpatient cardiology office in St. Louis,
yeah,
that's when Obamacare rolled out and like all of these private
mhm,
physician offices were having to make decisions on whether to
yeah,
stay a private, entity or to go under the umbrella of a hospital. And a lot of them were forced to go under the umbrella of a hospital because otherwise they weren't going to get reimbursement for like Medicare. So definitely like a lot of restructuring there. And some of the higher up, like, some of my boss's bosses who I thought would be there forever, they were amazing people, were getting cut
Yep.
with a lot of this restructuring. So I think there's definitely a need for kind of understanding personal branding. And kind of a side note, I took a little break from nursing to do marketing and event directing for a martial arts studio. So that was kind of my big introduction to kind of personal branding and marketing. And then when I decided to come back to, nursing when COVID hit, doing the
Yeah.
pediatric home care, really realized like the need to kind of understand
Hmm.
um, how to market and kind of how to brand yourself. And I don't think we think about that as nurses because we're thinking so much about taking care of other people, right?
Yep.
So I think you're right. We don't think about personal branding and we don't think about, kind of money and long-term goals. And then also like, what are we going to, what's our backup if for some reason, the nursing for whatever reason we can't do nursing anymore, whether it's, an on the job injury or family circumstances or something like that. So
Yeah.
let's dive into the personal branding part. I kind of want to ask you, like, so we're talking about personal branding. What is personal branding? Like, what's your definition for it, and why is it essential for nurses?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and it's hard and difficult to answer because there's so many different definitions. Um, but let me start with why it's important, then I'll get into what it is. So it's important because, like I said earlier, if you don't, manage your brand and start looking into how to manage your personal brand, you are not going to get certain opportunities. Something as simple as an interview, a lot of nurses struggle with confidence and self-promotion. Like when I do my nurse career coaching, that's something that I notice. Like mindset and confidence, I always have to work with my clients on, no matter if they're a brand new nurse or they've been a nurse for like 20 years. They feel like they don't want to brag about themselves or whatever. And I'm like, you
Yeah.
know what? You want the job. Like you have to be able to articulate your value and show up looking sharp. Like it's not just image, but we'll get into it. But part of it is image, like how you're showing up, how you're speaking, communicating, and pitching yourself. So that's the importance to get more opportunities. And also, whether it's in your career or in your business, and also, you want to be seen as a thought leader and an expert in your industry. So that if you do make these pivots, it's very easy for you to pivot. If you want to write a book, it's easy. If you want to start consulting on the side, it's easy if you have a personal brand. Or if you want to start a side hustle and you're not quite sure how to start it, the best thing you can do is start building your personal brand. So let's kind of get into what that looks like and what personal branding is. So, really, for me, personal branding is really truly just what others think about you, how they perceive you, and how they feel about you, like when people are talking about you. And then they associate certain things with you, kind of like simply, who are you? What do you do? And kind of what you stand for and what your values are. So, that to me, in a nutshell, is kind of personal branding. But really, you are the brand. Like, if you don't know it or not, if you're a nurse watching this, you may think you don't have a personal brand, but you do.
Yeah.
You already have a brand. You're just not aware of it. So I've written a couple articles. I mean, you could probably Google it and kind of look at what I've written in the past. I'm a contributor for Minority Nurse. So I've written different things, but really those are the major things that you want to focus on. What do you do? What value do you provide? What impact you want to make? And kind of what's your purpose? And how do you want to be perceived by others? And are you in alignment with the way you communicate and demonstrate this? And really, it's just being about like authentic and real and not like really curating everything, like pretending to be someone you're not. Like, and I know you don't want to like put all your business out there. You don't have to create a personal brand, but you want to be relatable and share your story so that people feel like they know you. And in the essence, like personal brand is about people trusting you. You're building trust. And that's really what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I think too, like, a lot of people can struggle with, okay, well, what are my values, right? And so there's really like a lot of like core work you have to
Mhm.
do just on a personal level to then
Yeah.
create kind of that professional and public persona to really develop that brand. So what would be kind of one of your recommendations for how do I determine, what are my values and what do I really stand for?
Yeah. So one big thing that I love to do is journaling, and I believe in gratitude journaling. And I'm just, shameless plug. I did a journal on Amazon. It's called the 90-day uh, gratitude
Gratitude.
journal. So even if you don't get that, start writing out kind of like what you want to do, what you stand for, what your values are, and just kind of get clear on that. And then just pick, like, I would say, I don't know, maybe like your top core 5 things, and then ask. I would say this is an exercise I always say to people: ask like 10 to 15 of like your closest friends or people that you know, or family or coworkers, and and ask them to describe you in like 1 to 2 sentences or a couple of words, and see what comes up. Like, almost do an assessment and then write it all down and see what is like similar and what you're seeing and what you don't like. Because if you're seeing something repeatedly, you might want to work on that if you're being perceived incorrectly, kind of thing, right? That's one thing. And then the other thing is just really the image. That's something I'm having to work on more on 2025. But like, you don't necessarily always have to look like polished and like all well done. But honestly, like, first impressions matter, especially if like you're going for an interview. That type of stuff is part of your personal brand, like how people perceive you and see you. And then if you are starting a business, it's less about like your logo and your colors and things like that. Um, it's just more how you like treat people, how you interact with people, that people remember. Yeah. And
Yeah,
are you memorable, or like unforgettable, whatever you want to say? Like do people like damn, like I know her, like they might not know maybe your name, but like something about you they remember, or your energy. Like for me, everyone's like, "Oh, I love your energy." Like they talk about my energy. They say that I'm bold, unorganized, whatever sometimes. And forgetful. Like sometimes I forget, but honestly, I think it's because I probably have undiagnosed ADHD. I mean, ER nurse, right? And
yeah.
like, I'm not afraid to show my faults. I think that's another thing. Like, you kind of have to be vulnerable with your failures and stuff like that, and share your stories. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I
And I
think
talk a
that's
lot.
what's that?
And I talk a lot.
That's okay. That's all right. We all like to talk a lot. So, no, I love it. And I think that it's being able to have that branding but also keep like those boundaries, right? And
Yeah.
so that kind of separation between my personal life and my professional life and what kind of is my story, right? So like for me with the safety and security and in nursing,
Hmm.
I'm a domestic violence survivor, I'm a cancer survivor, so I have a
Oh,
lot of that and I've used a little bit of that, but you got to find like a balance too between like how much of that story do I really tell
yeah.
to you know uh, uh, give credit to the experiences that I've had,
Yeah.
but and that I have, a knowledge and an understanding, but not share so much to where like either I'm really making people uncomfortable or
Yeah.
I'm making myself uncomfortable. So I think there's definitely like that balance
Hmm.
between all of that. So
Yeah.
how do you think personal branding can really kind of help open doors, like for new career opportunities, leadership roles, promotions? How does that help with that?
Yeah. So there's kind of two answers to this, kind of, right? So to me, I think, and I'm just going to be real, I think some organizations do not like when nurses build personal brands. If they're too visible on social media, or let's say on the news. Like, for example, I have Alice Benjamin, who's America's favorite nurse. She's a contributor to NBC. She does a lot of stuff on the news. And early on in her career, she had some struggles with some employers. And same with me. I was on the Jennifer Hudson show. I know I'm a celebrity, right? Um, and like employers have commented on that and stuff like that, but honestly, there's nothing wrong with it. Like technically you're kind of elevating your employer's brand as well, right? So it's like all about perspective. A lot of nurses are afraid to build a personal brand because they think that they're going to lose their job. But then for those nurses, I ask them like, well, do you really want to work for an employer that will fire you or let you go because you're just sharing your thought leadership and you're not representing them, like you're your own individual, as long as you're not doing anything crazy or whatever. Like I truly believe that you can still build a professional brand, like a personal brand professionally with, so it's kind of a decision that you have to make. And then remember what we talked about, there's no job security really 100%. So you can choose not to build a personal brand and let people kind of manage it for you, and just whatever is out there is out there. Or you can choose to take control of it and manage your brand so that you are a thought leader, you are an expert in the nursing industry, you are sharing articles, you're being perceived the way you want to be, so that people start paying attention and you're top of mind. So like opportunities will just start falling in your lap. If you're sharing newsletters or articles about certain topics, then somebody might reach out to you and be like, hey, can you speak at our conference, or can you write this article for us, or whatever. And same with networking, that's afforded me a lot of different opportunities just from networking. So, and before I used to think, early on in my career, like, I don't want to suck up to anybody, like, blah, blah, blah. But listen, the world is the world. Like, people get certain positions, or it's who you know sometimes. I mean, you still have to have the skill and the whatever, the stuff to back it up. But that's just the truth of the world. Like, you have to build that brand and start creating relationships, and that will lead to opportunities. And it's not just like a one-way thing. You have to also help others, elevate others, celebrate others. And then it's like karma, like you'll get it back. And I really believe in an abundance mindset, that like there's opportunities out there for everyone. And nurses need to start thinking that way and
Yeah.
stop with the scarcity mindset. Like, there's not enough, I can't find a job. Like, the more you think that way, the more you're going to attract that. And I just did a couple newsletters and post about that. So I really believe in that, like manifesting, praying, gratitude, all that.
Yeah. Well, and I think even just if you don't have any intention of creating a side hustle just yet, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And also talking to some of, my security listeners too. Because one thing I don't see a lot on LinkedIn, and if you're not familiar with LinkedIn, it's a social media networking platform for professional growth.
yeah,
I don't see a lot of new nurses. I don't see a lot of kind of lower level security guards or security officers. And I think there's a big missed opportunity there, because there's a lot of education and a lot of good information that's posted on LinkedIn
yeah,
that really helps our growth and learning as nurses. I follow quite a few like legal nurse consultants, and they are always posting like, this is like this disease process, and this is why we do this. And
mhm,
so there's a lot of opportunity there
yeah,
that I think is really not talked about, and definitely not encouraged. And so even if you don't plan on having a side hustle, knowing how to, I think it's really about, like, going back to what you said. It's about communicating your values and what you stand for. And when
yeah,
you find that voice and you're able to do that, that really helps open those career opportunities like within your organization, because you're having those conversations with, the mid levels or the C-suite. When they come around and talk to, they like to come around and do their monthly rounds and talk to all of us frontline staff. And so,
yeah,
if you can pull them aside and say, hey, which I've done several times, and I'm just like you get a little loud, and you just kind of have to say, hey, we need to really look at how we're doing things here,
yeah.
um, and do
Yeah.
that. So,
Yeah, and then also sometimes it happens outside of work, which is something else that I realized. And I feel like a lot of nurses sometimes, or other people, just gatekeep information. And this is what I want to do at this conference, Nurses Making Money Moves. is I'm inviting every nurse, like nursing student to nurse executive, to non healthcare professionals that are females in the finance space, marketing, personal branding kind of style, because we need to learn from other industries, right? And that's kind of like the value proposition of this conference, of how different it's going to be than most conferences. And I'm doing it my way. Like, it's going to be fun. It's not going to be stuffy and boring. Like,
I have no doubts that it will not be stuffy and boring.
have a DJ, like, for real. Like, when's the last time you went to a nursing conference that has a DJ? And then we're gonna have like cocktail hour and dancing and stuff, because it's all about networking. Like, people
Yes.
want to have fun, people want to be in person, and that's where a lot of the big decisions are made. Like, um, I follow a lot of millionaires and marketers and things like that, and a lot of these decisions, like I follow Morgan DeBon and Rachel Rogers and all that. A lot of these decisions and like partnerships or collaborations are happening not at work. They're happening at these events and in-person networking. So you need to be in the room. So that's why you need to be in Tampa, March 8th on International Women's Day at the nurses.
I love that you picked International Women's Day too. That's awesome.
Yeah, it just felt like it fell in place. And I really believe that it's all God, like, because I wanted it to be March for Women's History Month, because I'm a big like women empowerment person. And it's going to be held at the Museum of Art, because I thought it was a cool venue and, creative and stuff. The lady was like, well, March 1st is not available. We have either the 8th or the 15th. I was like, cool, I'll do the 8th. And then, not even knowing, like 2 weeks later, I realized it was on International Women's Day. So I was like, look at God, like putting things in alignment. And like, I secured the speakers and everything like within 2 weeks. Like, I was like, I am not playing around. Like,
Amazing.
and that's another thing, like for 2025, that I want to tell people out there, like, just start whatever it is that you want to do. Start it. Stop asking so many people. Like, I still struggle with this sometimes. Like, I'm always like, asking for permission or like validation. And I went to this conference once, and I don't know who said the quote, but they're like, you don't need validation. Like, you only need validation for parking or something like that, right?
Love it.
To that effect. That really hit hard. I'm like, you know what? I gotta just stop asking people, follow my gut. And we do that as nurses, right? Like in the ER or whatever, we follow our gut, and it's just intuition. And I think we need to do that more with our career, our businesses, and our lives, and just go for it and just take risks. And a lot of nurses don't want to do that, but yeah. And I forgot what you asked me, but that's just
I forgot what I asked you too. So do anything. I think we're just talking and having a conversation here, which is great. That's what I'm wanting, and that's what I'm looking for. So
yeah, opportunities. I think we were talking about opportunities and stuff like that. But honestly, yeah, and like it happens outside of work. That's what I was trying to get to. Not necessarily always in work, but you do need to develop that audacity to like speak up and get that confidence. And you're not just born with it. You have to like build that up, like every day.
yeah. Oh no, it's difficult. I mean, I remember when I first started off in nursing, there were a couple of instances with patient care where I was like, I really think like this is what's going on. But I didn't speak up and I didn't say anything. And then when I came back for my shift, I mean, it wasn't anything like bad, but had I spoke up sooner, then the patient's care could have been, done a lot faster. It wasn't until maybe like the doctor the next day rounded and was like, hey, this is what's going on with this patient.
Yeah.
So, and I got myself in trouble a couple of times too for speaking up.
Well, yeah, of course. Good trouble all the time. Yeah.
Sometimes the doctors were not happy with me because I would tell patients how it is. But on the offhand, when I moved away from Cincinnati, I had a few of those doctors say, you know what, thank you so much. I'm a better doctor because you challenged me.
And it doesn't matter. So, it's not about your feelings. It's not about their feelings. It's about patient safety.
Patient care and
once
safety,
you're comfortable in that, no problem. I was an educator. I used to like tell the new nurses, I'm like, pick up the phone, call Dr. Randall. Oh, pick it up. Call them right now. They're on call. Pick them up. Pick it up. And then I'll be like, oh, they're not coming. Call a rapid response. They'll be here in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
You cannot play. These are people's lives. So I was very serious about safety and quality and all that. And then going back to your LinkedIn about how a lot of nursing students and some other nurses are not taking LinkedIn seriously. Like, I did not take it seriously when I first started. I just like went up to like job search once in a while. But when I started my business, I was like, I'm going to be intentional about growing on here, making videos, showing up, because when you're top of mind, like people are constantly seeing you. Like you started this podcast, right? They're going to see you as a leader, a thought, thought leader, and that you're like an expert in your field. So that's how you're going to get more opportunities. So LinkedIn really is the way, um, I think, to focus on in 2025, especially creating videos and doing things like podcasts, because the other piece of it is visibility. And that's kind of the theme back to the conference. It's network, visibility, and impact. Like no matter what impact you're trying to make, whether you have a nonprofit, whether you're a security guard trying to do something, whatever the audience is, it doesn't matter what you're trying to do. You have to build a personal brand, and people have to know you and trust you to be able to somehow collaborate or make things happen.
Yeah. Well, and I think, and going back, I think LinkedIn's a great place to learn and just watch. Like
Yeah.
make an account and just kind of watch other people and what they're posting and how they're interacting and really
Yeah.
just kind of learn over time and then just kind of send out those requests to, connect with people. And I mean, that's what I've been on LinkedIn for about 4 years or so, and now I'm like, okay, I don't need the parking validation anymore.
And I mean, that's how we met, right? That's how we met. We started just a conversation in DMs, and that's all you need, right? And then it doesn't matter. Like, and I, like, when I first started, I didn't even have a photo because I was like, oh, I don't want to put a photo of myself. And like, now I'm all over, like, doing videos and lives, podcasting, like, because I don't care. I'm like, I don't care what people think. I have a message. I have a purpose. I want to help these novice nurses. I want to increase diversity in nursing. I want to show nursing there's opportunities out there. And I want to help nurses make money moves. Like, let's go. Let's go. And
That's
be different. Like, don't copy people. It's okay to learn, like you said, and like see what kind of people are doing. But people like read through that. Like, they can see people that are not authentic and kind of being fake. So I think that's really the key to growing is like just being real. Uh, and people can relate to you. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Like real and vulnerable too. The other thing I was kind of just popped in my head with LinkedIn too is it helps kind of get you out of a bubble, right? So it's really easy to kind of be inside a bubble. One, the bubble of your own head of what you can and can't do, and then also the bubble of whatever organization you're in. And so being able to network, whether it's LinkedIn or anything, like being able to network really is a growth mindset and gets you kind of out of that bubble
Yeah,
for
and
sure.
globally,
Yeah.
globally, like I've
Yeah.
connected with people from all over the world. So, and that's something else nurses need to understand, and just healthcare people, is that we need to start collaborating more globally because there's so many great things all over that we can share and implement, and just learn from each other. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Seeing our similarities and our differences, because I think, well, even in just the healthcare security space, there are
Yeah.
so many, as when it comes to patient violence and patient generated violence, and then even like that bullying and incivility, like it's really the same across the board. I mean, it's the same kind of thing that's perpetuating it. It's the same kind of circumstances that are
Yeah.
causing,
Mhm.
patients to lash out in violence, and to cause kind of that bullying and incivility. I mean, short staffing is like huge. I mean,
Right.
globally, it's an issue.
But you got
So,
to ask yourself, and I don't condone any type of violence. I was an ER nurse. I was the victim of like some crazy verbal abuse and some physical like things thrown at me and whatever. But we also really, this is a whole nother conversation, a whole nother podcast. But being in Canada, working there in the ER, working in various ERs in multiple states, and being a leader in education and everything, I've seen a lot of environments. And a lot of times, you know, it's the system that's creating these complexities that create this anger in some of these patients. Like, yes, sometimes it's like, alcohol or, drugs and things like
drugs, yeah,
that. But
dementia,
like,
things that can't be,
yeah, things
yeah,
like they can't
controlled.
control. But a lot of it is stuff we can control and do better, like patient experience, you know?
Yep.
So I'm gonna leave it at there, but like there's some
Well,
inappropriate stuff that's said to patients. They're trying to advocate for their family. People are dying. Like, it's some heavy stuff. So,
Yeah.
and again, I don't condone any violence, but we need to stop it and
Yeah.
treat the root cause. Yeah,
Well, and
yeah,
I think, but honestly, and to go back to the personal branding, I really think that's where personal branding can help. When you know what your values are, when you know what you stand for, when you know how you want to present yourself to the outside world, when you come up against those situations and that
yeah,
difficulty. Like my mission statement is I want to create calm and peace so that myself and others can know their full potential. That's my mission statement. So
yeah.
anytime
That's
I'm
amazing.
nursing, yeah,
Yeah,
anytime I'm interacting business relation, anytime I'm making a decision, do I want to do this? Do I want to do that? I'm putting it through the filter of, is this going to bring calm and peace to my life, or is this going to cause chaos and, turmoil? And
yeah,
so, to go back to that personal branding, I think that understanding that I think so much it's indoctrinated, the company branding, right? That we get lost and we don't know what our own personal branding is. We don't know what our own values are that we stand for.
right. And truthfully, basically, we just need to treat people like humans.
Yep.
Okay, like that's really it. And communicate effectively, exercise some emotional intelligence. And, you know, yes, a lot of this is also blamed on it's like very multifactorial, but uh, yes, organizations need to do more education for all across, like all their staff, not just nurses in the ER or psych or whatever, like everywhere in every, not even in healthcare, like anybody who's working in the hospital should be put through some type of education, emotional intelligence training, communication training, patient experience training. Like it really goes back to understanding what's going on, preventing, like being aware, like situational awareness, more security stuff. Like, let's start putting some metal detectors and stuff everywhere. Like, I don't care what people think, how it looks. When I worked in Detroit, we had metal detectors. Here in Florida, I went to this hospital, beautiful hospital, palm trees, everything. I walked in, there was a metal detector there, but not every place has that. So let's just be real about what's going on and like put things in place to prevent, all
Yeah,
this
prevent.
violence.
Well, and
So,
a lot of places are maybe relying more heavily on the physical security and not necessarily the education
prevention.
and the training, right?
Yeah.
Or like you said, they're doing the de-escalation training, but it's required that you only do it every 2 years. So we're not like upkeeping on it. It's kind of following like,
CPR, like
yeah,
CPR.
this like CPR. And it's actually so much more intense than CPR, in my opinion. Like de-escalating
Right.
and handling those situations is a
And think
much
about, oh, sorry.
no,
Yeah,
no, no,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Nope, you're
I
good.
was like, think about like what people are going through. Like, you don't know what people are going through. Like you said, you even were going through cancer at one time or domestic violence or kids are sick at home or whatever's going on. You don't know. So like also people need to be good. Like organizations need to give people time off and better benefits. Like it's just so multifactorial. And then they're like, oh yeah, some of them are like, oh, we have HR stuff. Like people need time off and they need to sleep. Like
Yeah, I think there was Rebecca Love. She's on LinkedIn. She posted
yeah, yeah.
something about should we let night nurses like sleep in the middle of the
Yeah,
night
why
during their
not? Yeah.
shift?
Of course,
Yeah,
yes.
I mean a
You
20
can be
minute.
practical.
Yeah, I
Put
mean
things
I work night shift. A 20-minute power nap, that would be great. Like I would love to be able to take like a 20-minute
and
power nap.
research shows that like evidence-based shows that when you're tired you can make more mistakes and stuff like that. Hello, like even driving, like it's just so ridiculous. Like
Yeah,
healthcare needs to just like come up to reality and fast forward and adopt things that just make sense. Okay, like don't
yeah.
even get me started.
It's definitely a conversation for
Don't get
another
me
day.
fired up.
This is what happens when you get two nurses together.
We are nurses. Yeah, yeah,
We get fired up. So I mean, and that kind of segues into, I think, like, what do you think are kind of common mistakes or challenges in creating a personal brand and networking? I mean, we're talking about the
yeah.
system, but is there anything else that you can really think of as far as like branding and networking
For
challenges
like
to overcome?
individuals, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think number one is people are just afraid to be themselves, or they try to, like I said, curate too much and like come across like someone they're not. That's one big thing. Or they don't want to share anything, and that's okay. Or they just don't see the value of personal branding and networking. Um, but honestly, like I follow people like, and I'm sure you're in marketing, like Gary V, right?
Hmm.
He talks a lot about just creating a personal brand, and even if you have a business or not, it doesn't matter. You need to create a personal brand, and that's how you're gonna advance in your professional career and in your business. For example, like a lot of nurses are like, "Oh, I'm gonna write a book and stuff," and might be like one of the best books ever, right? But it's like you don't have a following, nobody knows about you. Um, who's gonna buy your book?
Right.
Right? So
Yeah.
like that's the same thing in like, in business they talk about the know, like, and trust factor. If people don't know you, they don't like you, they're not gonna be able to trust you, and then they're not gonna know you even exist. Same thing if you're in the workplace. So I'm not saying like go around and like, you know, be like,
Introduce
hey,
yourself to
like,
like everybody.
yeah, but like, be real about it. Be transparent to like say your leadership team, like, hey, I'm interested in this type of role, or maybe this role doesn't exist. Do you think we can maybe like create a role for me for this or whatever? Like, just start having conversations and then just leave. Like, if you're in a place that you feel stuck, nothing is happening, you're not growing. You talked about growth mindset. Um, and you're getting like no raises, or you have a 1 to 3% raise, like that's not a lot with all this inflation and everything,
Yeah.
right? Like start thinking about other opportunities that you can do, like starting your side business. You could do something as like simple as tutoring nurses, consulting, or speaking, or writing. Those are like the four easiest things, like service type based businesses. And it doesn't take much to start a business. It literally takes you like within a week you can have an LLC or whatever it is that you want to create. But again, you need clarity before you start. And same thing with your career. You need clarity to see what the next step is. Or if you're not sure what type of business it is, whatever it is, you need clarity. And then you need to be good personally, meaning like what type of lifestyle do you want to live? And then the home front needs to be good before you can be good anywhere else.
Yeah, yeah, you definitely have to have those support systems in place and kind of that balance, right? So, and something
Yeah.
that I just kind of thought of that we didn't really touch on either is, we're talking about your values in personal branding, but you know, why create a personal brand? Is it to fill a gap? Is it to, pursue something that you're passionate about? Like, why create a personal brand?
To create trust. That's really the essence. To create trust and to build relationships and to be able to make an impact. Everybody here, I don't care if you're a nurse or not a nurse or whatever, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Some people are in these great positions making like, who knows, like 200, 300, 500,000 or more, and they're not happy. Why are they not happy? Because they're not fulfilled. Because according to the hierarchy of Maslow's, right, people want to feel fulfillment. You want to be able to be know that you're making an impact, like you have a purpose to fill, and sometimes that can change as you're growing. But if you're not feeling fulfilled, you're not truly going to be happy, right? So that's really the essence of why you should be building a personal brand. And if you don't have it figured out yet, it's okay. Just keep working on that clarity, keep networking, and then also invest in yourself, whether it's like going to therapy or talking to people, or actually paying money to have a business coach or just a career coach like myself. Reach out to me if you want to, switch.
Yes,
Novice
highly suggested.
novice nurse looking to level up in 2025. And no, seriously though, investing is really the key to success and personal development. But you got to implement and take action. Like you can read 10 books a day, but it's not going to do anything if you're not taking any action. So that's kind of like the biggest thing. And then, like I said, just building relationships so people trust you so you can make the impact that you want to.
Yeah, nice. A Brene Brown quote just came to mind, which is not originally her quote. I guess it's a Papua New Guinea quote, of where knowledge is only a rumor until it lives in muscle. So you have to take that action. You can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you're not
Yep,
moving
love
those
that.
muscles and taking action, then it's just a rumor, right?
Yeah. And you can fail, and that's okay. Like, that's fine. You just learn and
Yeah.
get back up and do something else.
So tell me a little bit about your speaking engagements because that kind of goes along with the personal branding. So where are you, speaking at and getting the word out?
Yeah, sure. Great question. So I love to speak at, different conferences and also virtually and in person. So I'll be speaking at the National Nurses and Business Association in Vegas this summer. So definitely check that out. I'm going to announce it soon on LinkedIn. And then also I spoke at another conference in Nashville a while back on personal branding. And I'll be speaking at the Nurses Making Money Moves conference about branding as well. So a lot of the topics that I speak about are about nurses starting their businesses, personal branding, and then even just like interview skills and things like that. I spoke at the New York nursing student convention for the whole state. Did that in New Jersey as well, and I did it for all of Canada, all the nursing students for the nursing students for Nursing Week in Canada.
Oh,
So if
nice.
any organizations are looking for speakers virtually or in person, definitely contact me. And you can check out my speaking website, nursefair.com.
Well, I have absolutely enjoyed talking to you today, Farah. You are such a
Right.
delight and so much fun, and I love the energy. I will take that all day long. I'm a little bit of an introvert, so I gotta, sometimes I need those other people that got the energy to get me going. Um,
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
yeah, you're welcome. So, where can people find you? And then if you want to recap just one more time on the conference that you're having, I would love to
Yeah.
have you do that.
Yeah, so people can find me on LinkedIn. That's my playground. That's like where I live mostly. I'm also on some other platforms, but I barely know how to use them. So just find me on YouTube, The Nursing Dose with Farah, for all my podcasts, or Spotify. Please subscribe because I only have like 100 subscribers. I don't know. I haven't been promoting it. So please subscribe. And please subscribe to Sarah's stuff too. And I have the book, Nurses Making Money Moves, A Nurse's Guide to Starting a Business. You can find that on nursefair.com. And then I gave her all the links, so I'm sure you'll see that. And then just Google me. If you're not sure, just Google Farah Laurent. You'll see articles. And then about the conference, you can go to nursefair.com or just follow me on LinkedIn. I have all the links to for you to get tickets to go to the conference, which is the Nurses Making Money Moves conference. It's on March 8th on a Saturday, Tampa, Florida, at the Museum of Art. And there's going to be a plethora of speakers. I just announced the panel. There'll be a couple more panelists. And then the actual main stage speakers. We have amazing speakers. We have like an entrepreneur professor in the chair of the entrepreneurship program from the University of Tampa. Huge businesswoman. She wrote her own book that was actually reviewed by the editor of Entrepreneur magazine. Like, hello, like these are some high caliber speakers. We have Precious L. Williams. She's a 13-time national pitch champion. We have Dr. Kiana Jones. She has her own med spa in California. So if you're into aesthetics, want to learn about how to open your own practice. We have Renee Lindo, who's a personal stylist from Toronto. Shout out to all my Canadians. I'm also Canadian. You need to come. And Teresa Sanderson, she's just going to talk about how to just take what you know as a nurse and turn it into profits. And I hope I didn't miss anybody. And then Alice Benjamin, who is the broadcast queen all over. She was on Dr. Oz and everything like that. So many speakers. If I missed anybody, I'm sorry. And then we have Alicia Adams, who owns her own staffing agency. Claudia Garcia, who does staffing too. And then we have Dr. Ezem. She is an ED physician turned kind of investor. So many amazing people. And it's only one day, y'all, okay? But if you want to come to the VIP and meet all these speakers, just message me. It's March 7th, which is the night before, at a rooftop bar and restaurant, cocktail. So just message me if you want the link for that. And then what else?
Well, if you're in Canada and you want to get out of the snow for a little bit in March, go down to Tampa to Farah's conference. Or here in Michigan and you want to get out of the snow for a little bit. We got a snow day today.
Freaking Georgia got
Yeah,
snow.
yeah. Yeah.
Wherever you are, just come through because we're going to have good weather. Tampa has good food. You get to hang out with me, of course, and all the amazing speakers. And there's going to be a DJ. Like, hello, she's from Miami. Like, she's bringing the fire. Like, it's going to be fun. It's going to be lit. It's going to be energy. And you're going to just have the opportunity to network. And then there's people coming from the AO1 now, like the Association
Of nursing
Organization of
leadership.
Nurse Leaders,
Yep.
and then people from the ANA, the American Nurses Association. So, like, if you're a nursing student, up to a nurse exec, or just a female professional looking to level up, you need to be in the room. Okay, so that's it.
Nice. Get in the room. Mic drop. Get in the room. Put it into action and get into the room.
Yes, thank you, Sarah, for the opportunity. I'm going to have you on the podcast later on, The Nursing Dose with Farah.
Yeah, I would love that. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. And we hope that you have a wonderful day.
Bye.